Donald Trump posted a video to his Truth Social account mocking Ron DeSantis for having no personality, which you all know how I feel about Donald Trump. He usually is incapable of telling the truth, but that's actually an accurate statement. I gotta say, that is a correct statement from Donald Trump. Take a look at this, and then we will discuss.
The problem with Ron DeSantis is that he needs a personality transplant, and those are not yet available. Almost all congressmen and women that served with him and knew him well supported me, some of them surprisingly so because of their relationship with Ron. I would say that when it comes to lack of personality, Ron would be in a class with Asa Hutchinson, and that's not good. Ron's foreign trip was a total bomb. They didn't even know what he was doing there. What are you doing here, Ron? Why are you here? It was a mess. Thank you.
A personality transplant, and those are not yet available. Not a bad line, I have to say. We have more to look at from this video, but it's been really interesting to see DeSantis' pre-campaign campaign sort of fall apart, even though, of course, his official campaign hasn't even gotten started. As I've talked about before, in his little Florida bubble where all of his events can be nicely planned and put together, he was gaining a lot of popularity. It's as if the GOP base was falling for the idea of Ron DeSantis that was portrayed on Fox News and at these events that he was holding as governor, but not the actual Ron DeSantis. Once he barely got out of his comfort zone, Trump started attacking him. His lack of political skill started to be revealed. Plus, the indictment of Trump did seem to motivate some Republicans to consolidate, a lot of Republicans to consolidate around Trump because they wrongly believe that this is all a big witch hunt to get Trump and all of that. Before we discuss further, here's more from this video from Trump.
A new and very important poll just came out, the Morning Consult poll, highly respected. And it has us at 60, leading by a lot. 19 is second place, and then they get into the 5s, 4s, 3s, 2s, 1s, and even some 0s in there, a lot of people. But this is incredible. So we're at 60% compared to 19%. And then big drop-offs, really big. And the 19% is going down. That's Ron DeSantis. And you've been watching him fall. He's falling at record levels, and we'll keep it that way. So we got to make sure we have a great election. Got to win big. And we're leading crooked Joe Biden by a lot. A lot. The polls are showing we're 7 points up, 8 points, 9 points, and even 11 points in one instance. So we're beating them all. And let's keep it that way because we're going to make America great again. We're going to take back our country. Put America first, make America great again. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
So we'll just talk first about the DeSantis part of that, and then at the end of the segment, we'll get to his claims about his poll numbers against Biden. So oftentimes when he cites polling in these videos, I have to say, I don't know where he got that from. I haven't seen any numbers like that. But this time on DeSantis, he's citing an actual accurate poll from Morning Consult. The poll has Trump at 60% in a hypothetical GOP primary field, with DeSantis in second at only 19%. Now, the expected response from DeSantis advocates would likely be, yeah, well, DeSantis isn't even formally in the race, though, which is fair, especially in other primary contexts. But in a reality where the GOP base is already very familiar with Trump, it's harder to imagine they could be easily swayed by just a formal announcement of a new candidate, as is possible for sure in other normal primaries with multiple kind of less familiar candidates. And this one where everyone knows Trump and they kind of already have feelings about him, that's harder to imagine, but we'll see. As I've said before, though, it is really disturbing that Trump still has this level of control over Republican voters, even though, as I've also said, we wouldn't want DeSantis to be the nominee either. And that kind of reminds me, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine over the weekend, and they were kind of approaching our discussion about the GOP primary with wishful thinking, saying, you know, somebody better has to, by the 2024 primary election, a better Republican candidate has to be able to jump in and knock out Trump and DeSantis, and Republicans have to want a change from all this craziness. And while I wish that were the case, absolutely, I had to somberly explain that the majority of Republicans, they want Trump. It's Trump's party still, as of now. Centrists and those left of center, I think, try to project our own reason onto the GOP base. And, you know, we'll think, gosh, certainly after all that we've seen from Trump, they have to be ready for something better, something different. But now at this point, as things stand, the political landscape now, I'm extremely confident, even though, yes, this is horrible, that unless something truly wacky happens, Trump is going to be the Republican nominee in 2024. There absolutely are for sure Republicans who aren't, but the majority absolutely are still bought in to Trump's lies. And DeSantis was trying his best to be a little mini Trump with less baggage, and that was winning over some voters for a moment, but then they fell back in line with the original Trump. And just for fun, let's watch this again. You might remember DeSantis got asked about the fact that his poll numbers were dropping, and here was his answer to that question.
Governor, polls show you falling behind Trump. Any thoughts on that?
I'm not a candidate, so we'll see if and when that changes.
So strange, DeSantis. Now, Trump, even though he has a significant lead over DeSantis, he is still obsessed with talking about him. Just to give you a quick taste, aside from the videos we just watched, he's also constantly posting things like this. Once people started learning about Ron DeSantis, his poll numbers and popularity started to disintegrate at a level and speed rarely seen before in American politics. Just an average governor, look at the stats, with a great PR, probably lost MAGA forever. And then in another post, he said, DeSantis put off his announcement until June because his numbers are so bad. He also got rid of his ridiculous exploratory committee because he didn't like what they were telling him, MAGA, and many, many more all hours of the day. DeSantis, as he calls him, or DeSantis, as he also calls him sometimes, is always on Trump's mind, which to me comes off as weak. Why are you acting so panicked about someone who is not even in the race and you are leading them significantly in the polls? I would expect Republican voters to perceive that as bizarre and weak, but again, don't project your logic onto Trump or supporters of his, because apparently this style really works for Trump, and this is the way that he knocked out so many of his opponents from the Republican primary in 2016, just constantly attacking all of his opponents. Now, one aspect of Trump's attacks against DeSantis that I really like and is good for the left is what we've been seeing a lot of recently in pro-Trump, anti-DeSantis ads, and it looks like this.
Congress, DeSantis voted 3 separate times to cut Social Security. That's right, 3 times over 3 years. Worse, DeSantis voted to cut Medicare 2 times. DeSantis even voted to raise the retirement age to 70. The more you learn about DeSantis, the more you see he doesn't share our values. He's just not ready to be president.
Like cutting Medicare, slashing Social Security, even raising our retirement age.
The pudding ad, of course, is a reference to that story that came out about DeSantis eating pudding with his fingers. Very bizarre. But the reason I love that attack line is, as I've said before, it brings the conversations of Medicare and Social Security being threatened by Republicans back into the conversation. Sure, it's Trump, a Republican, saying that he won't and attacking others for it, but it makes it a question that will more often be posed to Republican candidates. It brings it into focus much more often, as we've already seen. Here was a moment where Mike Pence, who also seems likely to jump into the race himself, where he differed with Trump on the subject.
Left unchecked. And remember, Joe Biden's policy is insolvency. In fairness, my old running mate's policy is identical to Joe Biden's, that we're never even going to talk about Social Security and Medicare. I think we owe my 3 granddaughters better than that. To
the specifics of what he said, saying Democrats' plan or Biden's plan is insolvency, that's just dishonest. I've walked through these specifics in the past as to how you protect benefits and properly fund the programs. Essentially, it's more properly taxing those at the top of our economic ladder, which is why Mike Pence is for the cuts instead to Medicare and Social Security. Instead of those taxing changes. But Trump constantly talking about entitlements, even if it is just to attack DeSantis, will cause that to be a subject of the primary like it wouldn't be otherwise. And it will become increasingly clear that most Republicans in their ideal world would go after Medicare and Social Security. They will be repeatedly pressed on the issue, and that is really good for the American people to see. Now, Trump has also proposed cuts to these programs while he was president, so the answer is just don't elect Republicans if you care about these programs. Politico nicely summed up what I'm talking about here with an article titled "Trump Ties GOP and Not Over Medicare and Social Security." And the article writes, Donald Trump is driving a wedge through the GOP over one of American politics' thorniest issues, the future of Medicare and Social Security. The former president's attacks on potential GOP primary opponents and is warning to party leaders to stay away from the popular entitlement programs in their push to cut spending are cleaving Republicans at every level. Lawmakers who once backed entitlement overhauls are now openly at odds with colleagues who prefer to soften their positions before they face voters in 2024. in a GOP presidential race that's a referendum on Trump himself is now also becoming one on Medicare and Social Security. That is so good. So keep bringing it up and causing this friction, Trump. It will only help the Democrats. Now, quickly to address this part of Trump's True Social video.
We're leading crooked Joe Biden by a lot. A lot. The polls are showing we're 7 points up, 8 points, 9 points, and even 11 points in one instance.
So I don't know where he's getting 8, 9, 10 points, but we did talk about this terrifying Washington Post ABC News poll that shows Trump with a 7-point lead over Biden. That did seem, though, to be an outlier poll, because shortly after that poll was released, we got this ABC News YouGov poll that says Biden at 45% continues to cling to a slight edge over both Trump at 43% and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis at 42% on the question of whom voters would choose if the 2024 election were held today. But either way it goes, it is much closer than we would like it to be. Let me know what you think of all this on Twitter, Luke P. Beasley.